Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good day and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here. I got a busy day ahead of me. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I got a busy day ahead of me. I'm doing some preps today and extra preps. You know, I'm going to be getting bottled water and canned food today, you know, which is all heavy stuff, you know, and this afternoon, and stock it away for myself. Things are getting really rough. Things are getting really bad. Everything could change in a moment at this point over in the war in Ukraine. We're going to talk about that. Now, an awful lot of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in over in Ukraine right now has to do with stuff like this. Has to do with it. Generally, a lot of it has to do with attitude. The President Biden announced recipients of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and they just basically picked all their buddies who they chose for these medals. Michael Bloomberg, Gregory Boyle, James Seibern, Elizabeth Dole, Phil Donahue, Medgar Wiley Evers, Al Gore, Clarence B. Jones, John Forbes, Frank Lautenberg, Kathleen. Anyway, the list goes on and on and on. Nancy Pelosi is one. They all received these medals. Well, you know, at the beginning of this war, I would mark one thing. See, they had a certain attitude, the senators and stuff, like in Rome, you know. The Roman Empire shall never be brought to ruin by anyone. We are the exceptional ones. Well, that's a statement used by the exceptional ones, is a statement used by the United States, the exceptional country, and they get all these medals, and they feel like nothing could ever touch them. They have something that I want to call it this right here. It's a noun. It's called hubris, and the dictionary defines it as an exaggerated pride or self-confidence, to be hubristic. The saying comes from ancient Greece, and it's basically when they're in a group, a very powerful group. Now, I'll admit that the Western power, the NATO alliance, is the most powerful military on Earth right now. And this is part that what's backing them up, this military that's backing them up, is part of what's giving them so much hubris. Also, another thing that they have in high supply is arrogance. It's being unpleasantly proud and behaving as if you are more important or no more than other people. Arrogance. You see, in Russia, you know, before the start of this war, Russia said, okay, Putin said, you give us a security guarantee. Otherwise, if we don't get it, we're going to attack Ukraine. And everybody was in disbelief when he actually did attack Ukraine. And they didn't give him that security. They basically didn't not give him any security guarantee. What's a security guarantee? It's just a slip of paper, for crying out loud. But no, they didn't get it. The Russians didn't get their security guarantee, and so they did go to war with Ukraine. Now, at this point, there's a pushing action going on. There's an awful lot of, what's the word I would use, between the superpowers right now. They're flexing their muscle. They are right now. They're like they're both sides are beating the war drums. They're both flexing their muscle in this situation. Now, Belarus has launched nuclear drills with Ukraine in mind. So right now, what's going on is they're actually locking and loading these weapons. And they're trying out their systems to make sure they work properly. Will they use them? Well, I'm going to tell you guys what. If they do use a tactical nuke in Ukraine, which would be probably the most likely target, everything in the world will change overnight when that happens. There is a danger, albeit I think a small one, that it could lead into a strategic nuclear war. But I think it's a fairly small, if a tactical nuke was used. I think probably cooler heads would prevail, but I don't know for sure. It could escalate directly into full-scale nuclear war. It could. It has that potential if a mushroom cloud is unleashed on the world in these tensions that are going on right now. So Belarus or Belarus is doing drills right now involving missiles, warplanes capable of carrying tactical nuclear weapons. It says the Belarusian maneuvers began a day after Russia announced plans to hold similar drills, simulating the use of battlefield nuclear weapons. So, just like we saw them, the Russians gathering around Ukraine before they launched their invasion into Ukraine, we see the nuclear weapons being gathered now ahead of potential use. Now, the United Kingdom, what could trigger this use, and why are the Russians doing this? Well, this probably has something to do with it. You see, there's red flags for Russia for the use of nuclear weapons. One of their things is if they're attacked on the motherland. This could be a green light for them. If Russia's not going to be defeated, allow themselves to be defeated without ever firing any nuclear weapons off. If somebody's invading their country or trying to blow up their country, right? And so the United Kingdom gives Ukraine the green light to use British weapons inside Russia. Inside Russia. It says Ukraine can use British-supplied weapons to strike targets inside Russia, UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron stated during May 2nd visit to Kiev. Ukraine has that right, he says. So what we have is, we have the United Kingdom sending them these long-range, and the United States too, with ATACMS. And so they have they're giving them the capability. And now they're saying, okay, Ukraine can use British-supplied weapons to strike targets inside Russia, UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron stated. So, yeah, give them a thumbs up. Now, what about Ukraine themselves? Ukraine's in a desperate situation, and I'm of course that they would just love to get some help. You know, they would love to see French troops come marching into their aid. What would you call that? The cavalry has arrived. And, of course, they've got these weapons that they can attack inside Russia. And think about it for a minute. If you took up Ukraine's position, they said to themselves, hey, you know what? If we did attack inside Russia... Now, I'm not saying that this is what's going through their mind, that this is what's going through my mind. I'm just thinking, I'm playing a devil's advocate. I'm just thinking, what if I was Ukraine? You know, I would say to myself, hey, we could get some help here if we attacked inside Russia. The Russians launched an attack back on us, maybe an unconventional attack even. Then surely we're going to get some help here. Give us a hand, you know. In other words, Now, this is just my thinking. I mean, I'm just putting my thinking in here. As I'm thinking that Ukraine aren't frightened of World War III. They're already in World War III. They just want some help. That's what I would think. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. And so now they're giving them the go-ahead, and they're supplying them with these weapons to use. It's kind of a no-brainer, and maybe that's why Russia's already preparing a response for what they think could be an attack inside Russia itself using weapons from the West, from Ukraine. And the response back would probably, Russia's already done a lot of responses back into Ukraine. I mean, every time they've been hit, like they hit the Kursk bridge in Crimea, Russia responded back and bombed the heck out of Ukraine. Didn't seem to do much good. And a number of times Ukraine attacked Russian oil facilities. Russia responded back with an attack. It didn't seem to do much good. So how much is it going to take before Russia decides, hey, you know what? We ain't taking this garbage anymore. And then there's another thing. I went over through this hubris of the officials of the West. I'm going to tell you what. Yeah, they got a lot of hubris, and they got a lot of arrogance. But those kind of people that have the hubris and arrogance are the first ones to cry for their life when the push comes to shove and you get down to the nitty-gritty of things. They're the first ones to cry, oh, and panic. And lose their nerve. How much nerve's Russia's got? Russia willing to die? They've been dying on the battlefield for their country. How much nerve does the West have? Are they all willing to die from a Satan II missile coming down on their head? So how's their hubris going to fare when that possibility, instead of becoming a remote possibility that may or may not happen, when it becomes more of a reality in their mind that, hey, this could actually happen, we could actually all be incinerated in a nuclear Armageddon, when that comes to home to roost. Like right now, it's just like a theoretical sort of thing where they're just like, well, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, blah, 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 blah. It's like all a bunch of talk. But when the first mushroom cloud goes off, suddenly the talk becomes action, it becomes a reality, and then they wet themselves. Now, that's just what I got to say about that. Okay. So, where we are in this situation is the United Kingdom has given Ukraine the green light to use British weapons inside Russia. What sort of British weapons? I don't exactly know. I heard something about Storm Shadow missiles. Is that Britain? Is those the Britain ones? I'm not sure. But anyway, the ATACMS, I know, are the United States version of the long-range missiles that have been given Ukraine. Has the United States give Ukraine the green light to go ahead and attack inside Russia? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong about that. What a situation the world's in right now. But it could lead to a sudden conclusion here of a tactical nuke going off. This is a distinct possibility. The Russians are trained for it, and they're training for it right now. They're actually locking and loading right now while we speak. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if that happens, the most likely possibility is that it won't suddenly escalate into all-out strategic nuclear warfare. That's the most likely possibility that it won't. But there is a possibility it could. But probably not. But it would there's a high probability that if that happens, it would actually start World War III with troops being pushed into the area. At that point in time, once World War III really gets started and there's troops on both sides and both superpowers The United States and Russia are both coming on the battlefield, meeting head to head with actual soldiers and troops on the ground. And we're in World War III. At that point in time, there would be a slow escalation and moving toward the actual new use of the full-scale nuclear weapons, if you know what I mean, unless some sort of peace treaty comes along that would stop it at that point. But this is clearly, we're in uncharted territory now at this point in this stage of the game. And this is clearly getting a little bit out of control, as far as I'm concerned. And it would be so easy to solve all these problems. Inclusivity, I think that's what they call it, when everybody's included. We live in a world where everybody wants to be top dog. They all want to be the king, or they all want to be the chief, and have everybody else the Indians. That's not being inclusive. That's not equality. That's inequality. And we live in a world that come from barbaric times when there was no equality. Everything was just basically you had the king and he said what you do. If he said tomorrow morning you're going to pay more tax and you're already starving to death, and he just says, well, I want more tax, and you say, well, I'll starve to death if I give you this money that I worked my farms and my goats and my pigs. You know, I've been working the farm all year, and I had to sell my pigs and just to pay you tax, and now you're saying you're going to double the tax. Well, I'm the king and I say what I say goes. And that was the kind of world we lived in. That's not equality. We come in a world that just every part of the system is structured with inequality. And so, inclusivity. And we need to, if we change this whole thing, and it'd be very simple. Let every country on earth join NATO. Let every country on earth join the BRICS. And make it into a trade bloc, the whole thing. In other words, every country on earth, in order to be a trading member in the trade bloc, would have to be BRICS and NATO member. And don't exclude anybody. Let them all join. An entire earth family of one enormous trading bloc with one currency based on gold. Simple fix, because everybody would be included, and as soon as they join those two trading blocks, all sanctions are dropped and actual free trade, no tariffs, none of this trade wars and everything else. Just let everybody trade with everybody else. A trading bloc is the way out of this situation, as far as I see it, because that way everybody gets rich. And as far as the military is concerned, yeah, every country on earth should have a 5% of their GDP military budget. For what? Because if we were all in the same trading bloc and we were all getting along as one big family and all becoming rich, why would we need militaries any longer? Yeah, we would. To protect us from what's up there, not from what's down here. Not to protect each other from other countries, but to protect from what's the threats out there in space. You say, well, what's those threats? Well, there's asteroids, there's meteors, there's solar storms. The Earth needs to be protected from weather events too, and possibly from aliens from other worlds attacking. And it's about time that we had defense to protect our beautiful little planet from what might be lurking out there. And that could be something as bad as an X-class flare that would knock out all of our electronics. And the military is here to protect, to serve and protect worldwide, and that's why it should be built up bigger than what it is now, but not aimed at other countries, because we wouldn't have to worry about them any longer, because we'd all be one big family. We could then spend money on protecting ourselves from the threat up there. You know? Now, we're going to take a look at the markets now that I ranted on a little bit about this stuff, but I'm prepping today. I'm working all day at prepping. You guys should be too. You like to eat? I remember that thing. It was some sort of a music video or something years ago, and it was. He said, "You like to eat?" And the other guy says, well, "Yeah, I like to eat." And he says, "Oh, small world, me too. I like to eat too." It was. I can't remember what it was in, but anyway, it's kind of a silly. It was in a music video years ago. I can't remember who. Anyway, you guys might remember it. Oh, and I said that in the video. Anyway, 27.35 for silver. It's up 10 cents on the day so far. It's still severely undervalued. Gold price today, $23.14, and it's up 40 cents. So still above $2,300. It's holding its gain. Now, cryptocurrency, we're looking at a Bitcoin price of 62,309. So Bitcoin's been going nowhere the last few days. 3,002 for Ethereum, and XRP's at 52.5 cents. Seems like years are going by, and all I ever see for XRP is 50 cents. S&P 500 today is down 2 points at 5,185. Taking a look at the Dow today, and it is up 90 points at 38,974. Yeah, I wonder what effect that would have on the market, if a mushroom cloud went off over there in Eastern Europe. I wonder what effect that would have on the market. Probably a negative effect, and it might be pretty severe. It definitely would shake them up a little bit, but it would shake up the whole world. And like I say, everything would be changed. Well, you say, well, Glenn, how would everything be changed? In what way? In the way that all of it, instead of becoming talk and nobody being concerned, would suddenly become reality. And everybody would, it would suddenly become a reality, and everybody would feel that gut-wrenching fear worldwide. And people respond to fear. It is one of the emotions that are, it can be a very critical driving force emotion. Fear and panic, And in other words, we could see, like we seen during COVID, we could see them strip the shelves bare of certain essentials and stuff in a panic buying, a lot of people. And it could be 10 times worse than what we saw in COVID. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though. That's just getting started, where that fear. People, if we get that situation happen, you want to be very careful. Because the general public out there would be very frightened. And they're going to be almost in a panic kind of a situation where it suddenly became a reality. And their own mortality, that thought comes to mind, something that people don't like to think about. They like to put it to the back of their mind, but when they bring it to the front of their mind, and suddenly that becomes a reality. Hey, I could die in a nuclear war. Suddenly becomes a possibility that they never considered before. Then that fear and panic can come over the general population, and they can react different than they normally react to normal situations, like just driving their car. Maybe everyone could turn into a road rager, practically, if they're under that kind of pressure. The world would be changed. Because one of the reasons why I say that is because all through our lives, excuse me, from infancy onwards, we learn about nuclear weapons and what they're capable of. And it's, for humanity, it's one of their great fears. one of the great fears being realized suddenly, everything could change overnight. And so, maybe I'm talking like this is a foregone conclusion that this could happen. But I'm seeing evidence right here that is saying, hey, this is getting set up. This is a setup that very well we could see these exercises being done by Russia and their readiness. And then all it would take is an attack deep inside Russia by Ukraine, and maybe the red lines would be crossed at that point. And this is a reality in the world right now. And the sooner you can get your head around it, face that reality, you guys, get your head around it, face that reality, and do something about it. Like, for me, doing something about it means getting out there and buying 30 gallons of bottled water this afternoon. And maybe a whole big bunch, equal amount of canned food. On top of what I already got. And to me, this is very important. I'll eat all this stuff anyway. What am I going to buy? Probably a whole bunch of cans of ragu and a whole bunch of cans of beans and a whole bunch of cans of... I'll eat them all anyway. So I ain't worried about that. Anyway, guys, but maybe you guys should think about maybe putting a bit away for yourselves. Extra, even if you've been prepping. Because this is some serious stuff that's going on right now. Geopolitically. And we all know about what Macron said, the leader of France. He said that he's not ruling out sending troops into Ukraine, and Russia said if you send troops into Ukraine, by gosh, look out. Boy, this Ukrainian situation has been smoldering for a long time. Ukraine did I'm going to tell you, for such a small country, taking on such a big country, to hold out this many years, they're fighters, the Ukrainians, to hold off all of Russia for this long. When you're just a little country, it would be like the equivalent of the United States attacking Canada and failing to take Canada and having the war go on for years. What condition would Canada be in the end? They beat the hell out of us. But that's what's slowly happening to Ukraine. It's a slow but sure sort of thing, and Ukraine is desperate, and you can't blame them for being desperate at this point in time. Anyway, talked enough about that. Now, we're going to take a look at bonds and rates right now, and these bond yields are rising today, but not rising significantly. You got 2 basis points rise. U.S. 10-year at 4.48 rose 2.3 basis points, and the U.S. 30-year has risen 2.2 basis points at 4.62. Finishing off with the U.S. dollar index at 105.51. Yeah, you want to talk about major news. Talk about a big news story. It's going to be all over the news if they drop a nuke. Even if it's a small one. In Ukraine, that's going to be a breaking news red alert worldwide for everybody, and it would be a tremendous wake-up call. And I don't tend to think it would immediately escalate into all-out nuclear war. I don't tend to think that would happen. But I do tend to think that it would probably invoke Article 5. And it would probably be the start of World War III. The start. And it's very likely that they could probably fight with conventional weapons for a considerable period of time. They may even lob tactical nukes at one another on the battlefield. Ultimately, if they don't stop and they keep moving in that direction, when they all start to run out of weapons, Like looking ahead, maybe World War III starts, it might run for 2, 3, 4 years, eating up considerable men, and considerable men having to be drafted in all the Western countries and in the Eastern countries. Every country on Earth would probably get involved. It would just be a total shit show. Excuse my French. And ultimately what it would lead to in the end is when they start to run out of weapons to use, they'd be hurling rocks at one another in the end rather than using nukes. But in the end, that would be the only weapon that would stand out in the end. And to stop invasion, that would probably be the end of our species. It'd probably work in that direction. But in other words, basically what I'm trying to tell you guys is I think even if a nuclear war, World War III were to start with limited use of nuclear weapons, ultimately the conclusion of that would be something horrendous. But it would be a ways out there, because they would probably use up all of their conventional weapons first, right down to the last mortar shell. And then they would be facing whichever country was left was strongest would be facing invasion by the other countries. That's when they would really bring out the big guns. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.